Hello, fictional. Welcome to the Fiction Series X. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei was the Dragon Emperor of games and got harem? Part 2. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. After leaving Drake's card with Sona, I teleported home with Asia lightly breathing in my arms asleep. Once there I took her into the bedroom and placed her down on my bed. After making sure she seemed comfortable on the large bed, I left the bedroom and entered the living portion of my apartment. Sitting down on one of my chairs, I allowed my body to slump back and relax. Yubel, sorry for overworking you tonight, but can I ask you to do one more thing for me? Of course, Issei. Thanks. Can you go back to the church and look for any of Asia's belongings? If there are any, bring them back using the Kurobos for help. I felt her presence recede from my mind seconds later, leaving me to the usual peace and quiet of my apartment. I was actually feeling a little tired for once. It's been quite some time since I've been so busy in succession. Rich girl yesterday, none with very little today. Really does show how unpredictable the world can be at times. In front of me a small red and blue flash appears on top of my coffee table for a brief second as a loud yawn follows suit, along with some random grumbling. What appeared on my coffee table was the Kuo Academy uniform, the female version. There was even two black sweaters there just in case, although they were sleeveless. On top of the folded pile of clothes was the card of Drake, which now showed a droopy-eyed dragon. Next to him was a very basic pencil case for Asia. Leaning on the side of the pile of clothes was a cream-colored messenger bag. Lightly tapping the top of Drake's card to send him back into my deck, I turned my head to the left upon hearing the door to my room slowly squeaking open. There stood a shy Asia dressed in only a thin white nightie, her nervous eyes directed straight towards me. A small hint of composure hitting them once she took in the color of my eyes. "So you're awake then? Come and sit down, Asia-chan." Blushing slightly at my friendliness, she slowly came into the living area after closing the door to my room and taking a seat on the sofa next to the chair I was sitting on. "Your eyes, they said we would be friends when I woke up. Is that true?" Her voice came out in a sort of squeak, nervousness or perhaps apprehension of the possibility that what she had seen was simply just a dream. "That's true, though it came at a cost. You remember dying because the fallen angel stole twilight healing from you." Her expression took to a sad one as she nodded to me once. "After you died, I took your sacred gear back and placed it back into your body. My master then brought you back to life using a bishop piece. This means that you are now a devil." Her eyes widened in shock and started to turn a little teary. I decided to keep talking to try to get to the end before she could actually start. "I'm sorry that you had to be turned into a devil, but you now have a second chance. With becoming a devil, you can now go to school and make friends with girls your age at the cost of being able to pray, but when my companion returns, I'll modify the rosario of yours so you can at least wear that again until I can find a bypass for you." But I don't know Japanese. "Devil, does that mean I'll have to go around stealing souls?" "Well, I might do that from time to time. First off though, as a devil you can freely speak any language, so speaking it isn't a problem. I'll be helping you learn to write and accustom yourself to how our society works while you live here with me. Devils don't steal souls anymore, it's been a few hundred years since that. Anyway, most of your questions will be answered by our master tomorrow, so until then just relax and make yourself at home. I would advise you to go to sleep as it's quite late and we will have an early start tomorrow." Standing myself up, I took the pile of clothes into my arms and walked into the bedroom with Asia following just behind me. Walking to the two wardrobes next to the door to the bathroom, I opened the one on the right and started to hang up her uniform in it. "Asia-chan, this wardrobe will be for you, okay? After doing all the stuff we need at school tomorrow, we will go into town so you can get whatever supplies you want, whether it's girly necessities or appliances. This will also push me to get a hairdryer. Well, there we can get you some proper equipment for school, as the stuff given is basic so it won't last too long." No, I can't ask you to do that. You've done so much for me already, given me a place to stay. I can't have you buying me stuff as well." Putting the last of her uniform on a hanger and placing it in the wardrobe, I turned my head round to look at her. "Don't worry about it. As a devil, money for things like clothes and everyday essentials is nothing. You can earn enough for a week of groceries in one contract at times, plus I have an abundance of money anyway from winning game tournaments. Though if you want to do something for me in return, then learn to cook, I'm not really that good myself." Just as she was about to give me a response, I felt Yubel's presence back in my mind and a series of winged Kurobos appear in the room with a bunch of boxes from their small job. One of the Kurobos dropped a small box into my hands and from the holy aura I could feel in it, I would guess that it was her cross. You collected my things as well. I learned to cook quickly so I can repay you. Oh, I knew there was something I'd missed, what a terrible host I am. Sorry about that, telling you my name completely flew over me. My name is Haidu Issei, feel free to call me Issei. Hi Issei-san. Thank you for everything. You don't have to make it sound like you are leaving. It's fine. Go on, pack your things away. I'm pretty sure there are a few things you wouldn't want me to see, I'll go and make us some tea. Just before I turned to walk out of the room I could see a deep blush appear on her face from what I was insinuating. Never really had anyone to tease before, I guess I can now see why Yubel enjoyed to tease me so much before. Ah, such innocence. Waking up the next morning I found myself in a strange state. Asia had rolled over onto my side and had wrapped her upper half around my left arm in her sleep. Looking to the alarm clock on the side, I noticed it still had another 15 minutes before it was set to go off and wake Asia up. Grabbing one of the Kuribo cushions I had lying on the bed, I slowly released my arm from her hold and replaced it with the Kuribo cushions. She rustled slightly from the change, but luckily she didn't wake up. Getting off the bed with a stretch, I went straight into the bathroom as I used my magic to put on my uniform. After quickly washing my face I went out into the living and kitchen area to prepare. After making our bentos for the day I sat down in the living area as the alarm clock sounded in the bedroom, only to be shut off a few seconds later, accompanied by a cute sounding groan. Perhaps she is the type who needs a lot of sleep, or maybe she isn't used to staying up so late. Actually I wonder if it's due to the change in her body, it's been a while since I changed into a demon, so I don't really remember what I was like if I had any significant change. A number of minutes later and she emerged from my bedroom. Turning my head to look at her, I saw that her hair was just a tad damp and seemed to be drying pretty quickly. As I looked at her I noticed that she was like me, deciding to forgo the other clothes and was wearing one of the sleeveless black sweaters. I found it a little weird that hers had the school emblem on it, but mine didn't. Is there something wrong? It would seem my staring unnerved her. No, nothing wrong. Was just taking in how good you look in the uniform. Standing up from the chair I go back into the kitchen, pulling out the bread and sticking 2 slices in the toaster before turning back round to her. Pink box on the table is yours, don't expect it to be heavenly, but it's good enough. It's lunch for the day and for breakfast, do you want jam on your toast or not? I beeped my head to the side as I asked her, and she looked honestly distraught or maybe spoilt for choice. Either way it was a little pleasing to see someone get that way over something like this. Strawberry jam? She asked it a little too timidly for my liking. When I just nodded in reply, the biggest smile I had ever seen took to her face. I could probably compare it to a child's face on Christmas, it was a little strange to see that reaction at something I consider simple. Turning back round I opened the fridge and grabbed the jam, sliding it along the countertop as I let the fridge door close by itself and rummaging through the drawer for a knife. As I pulled a plate out to put her toast on, I cast a quick glance over my shoulder to see her sitting on the sofa stiffly fidgeting a little with her hands. As the sound of the toast popping I turned back round and took them out, placing them down on the plate before spreading the jam over the top. Picking up the plate, I took it over to Asia and placed it down on the coffee table in front of her. Relax a little, this is your home too now. Giving her a quick pat on the head, I moved off into my bedroom to collect my bag. Once I had closed the door to my room and got to the chair that my rucksack was sitting on, I felt Drake's presence in my mind. Yo Ibu, I got some news on that card of me for you. Oh yeah? What is it? You can only summon me during balance breaker, but it will cut the time by an hour, so it's a while off before you can actually summon me to play around. Taking my bag from the chair I started to make my way back to the living area. That just means I'll have to put in more effort to attain balance breaker. True Ibu. Don't let up just because you're immortal, you are a dragon as well now. With his bit said, Drake disappeared away as I turned the handle on my door to the living area. As I closed the door behind me, I saw Asia standing in the kitchen area with her bag slung over her shoulder and an empty plate in hand. Looking to the table I saw that her pink bento box was gone and my blue one was left behind there. Walking up behind her, I take my bento off the table and place it into my bag. Looking back to Asia I saw that the plate was just hovering over the counter next to the sink. Her troubles with this make me feel like I should use a plate when I have toast. Asia-chan, leave it there, we need to set off now. At the sound of my voice, she jumped a little and dropped the plate, causing it to ring out slightly upon contact. Luckily it only dropped a centimeter or two, so no worries. She turned around frantically and looked towards me before nodding her head childishly. As we walked to school together I can't help but feel a little out of place. The number of eyes on us was plenty. While a cute girl like Asia walking to Kuo Academy would most definitely catch people's attention, me walking to school with a girl is probably on the same level. I was a loner through and through, even though I had gotten popular due to the student council of late and Nim-chan's constant trials to get me to be more responsive. It had come to the point where they branded me with the same title as Kibayudo. I had joined him as a fellow prince. Continuing to walk down the road toward school with the other students gossiping around us, I looked to the side of my vision right at Asia, who walked alongside me on my right. Her head was down and her bangs were just covering her eyes. I could see a faint blush tinging her cheeks. She was nervous to begin with, this being her first ever day at school and with people who will treat her as an equal. She didn't need the prying eyes at all, so I used this time to calm her down. Reaching down into my right pocket, I took out her cross that I modified with Yubel's help and dangled it in front of her, causing her to look up at me. Turning my head slightly, I looked and saw her cup her hands underneath the cross. Letting go of the cross, it fell down into her hand and immediately her mood skyrocketed as there was no bad repercussions. She then immediately put it on around her neck and held onto the cross itself while looking down. Shaking my head slightly, I grabbed a hold of her shoulder and pulled her to the side, stopping her from walking into a post. I know you are happy, but please look where you are going. Looking forward again, I walked on, making her speed up to catch up with me. When we finally got to the school gates, we were met by Sona and the others who seemed to have been waiting for us. The rest of the students giving them space despite their lack of movement as the students walked on into the school, looking back every other second. As I stopped in front of Sona and the others, Asia looked up to me confused about why we stopped. Argento-san, I hope Issei-kun has been a gentleman to you. I rolled my eyes at what Sona said to Asia, but Asia was quick to defend me. Hi, he was. He gave me my own wardrobe, made me tea, sent brown balls of fluff to get my stuff, made breakfast, and also made lunch for me. Brown balls of fluff, I guess that really all Kurobo is, although I wonder why she left out the wings part. Yes, Kaichu, I feel a little hurt that you would imply that I might not have been. I raised my eyebrow slightly as I sided with Asia and defended myself. You may be a gentleman in school, Issei-kun, but how am I to know that you wouldn't be that way alone with a girl? I scrunched my eyes at that. The point was valid, but it still struck a nerve with me. So you don't have faith in me? I know I may be new to your peerage and all, but I feel like you are a little out of line, Kaichu. Now, I think I should take Asia into the school building. We need to see the teachers after all. Yes, Issei-kun, you should. Sona then cast her eyes towards Asia. It's a pleasure to have you, Asia Argento. We will speak again at lunch in the student council room. Turning around, the others parted for Sona to walk past them. Tsubaki was quick to follow as the others all gave me a small smile each before following suit. Nim-chan though gave a small wave in addition before skipping to join them. Issei-san, was that the student council president? Yeah. Sona Citrier as she goes here, Sana Shitori. The whole of the student council are devils with the exception of me per technicality. Sona though is the king and therefore our master. She is most definitely strict but not at all mean. You have nothing to worry about. With a small huff I shook my head slightly before starting into the school. Well, I remember, Asia, just write in whatever language you are comfortable with. We'll translate it afterwards for you. Sitting in the back of the class, I found myself being the only one able to allow my eyes to wander around the room. The reason for this being that Asia had entered the class along with Kokono-sensei and she had caught the whole class's attention with relative ease. My name is Asia Argento. I may still be new to this place, but I'm glad to meet you. As Asia bowed to finish off her introduction to the class, it roared into life in result, and when I say class I mean the boys. The girls kept to their usual soft chatter, but this time they were completely on the ball, pegging Asia as pure, innocent, and possibly naive. The boys, on the other hand, went down their own route and stuck to their perverted ways, as they were thankful for having a new attractive girl to lust over, with one half of the perverted duo rising up practically declaring to the class her 3 sizes. Whether they were accurate or not I didn't really care. I'm currently staying at Haidu Issei's place. Way to leave it pretty vague, Asia. Thankfully she is just way too innocent to understand the meaning that the boys in the class are currently thinking. All the boys rose out of their chances in very apparent anger that was directed completely at me, though it looked like the girls were up to protecting me. Argento-san, are you sure you don't mean staying in the apartment complex? I know they are trying to help me out, but they are just about to make it worse for me. Ah well, I'll just have to act out for once to shut them up. I don't mind potentially ruining the new nickname I've received. No, he was kind enough to let me stay with him as I'm new to town. Oh Asia, how damn innocent can you get? Now you've brought the girls into play, and their jealousy is much more of a fearful thing than the anger of these male idiots in this school. You bastard. How could you take her from us before she even got here? You show no interest, but take one before we even get a chance. I let out a small sigh as I took my gaze away from outside and towards the males in the room. As I placed my right hand back down on the table I took on a completely blank gaze. Shut up with your incessant noises. I'd appreciate it if you don't couple me along with you pathetic pigs. I'm giving here a place to stay. My reasons are not impure like you idiots. Now sit down before you interrupt the other classes with your ridiculous nonsense. Issei-kun, that was unneeded. Despite the fact that I had shut up all the boys in the room and practically calmed it down, Kokono-sensei didn't seem to like the way I did it. It's such a shame that she won't have the upper hand here this time. Kokono-sensei, I think it's very needed. This place is a school, it isn't a place for them to sate their own pathetic lust. You should do your part by keeping from wearing white shirts, Kokono-sensei. I've kept quiet because I haven't had time to say these past few weeks with starting in the student council, but one of the boys in this class has been noting the color of your undergarments on the days you do wear white shirts. With a slight sigh, I prop my head up using my left hand and look back outside of the window as Kokono-sensei starts to scold the boys and tries to root out who had been noting it down. They are just a bunch of idiots. The school day went by pretty smoothly for both of us. Asia seemed to get along pretty well with the girls in class in between lessons and at the first break, though it was more so just simple introductions and the other girls talking with Asia, getting to grips with how schoolgirls are. My day consisted of just doing the paperwork I put off the past 2 days, while doing whatever work in class at the same time. Thankfully Yubel was pretty stern with teaching me and forcing me to study, so the lessons were easily completed and I could get onto my work in the student council. Any other person as treasurer though would have just dealt with money and a few other things, but seeing as Sona thought of me as highly competent, I had to deal with numerous other things on top of that. She even went as far as giving me some documents that she had to deal with as heiress of Citri, though this was possibly so I could get myself accustomed with devil paperwork, as when my position as inheritor of Yubel's eyes becomes known I'll have a lot to deal with, especially the possible marriage requests. I didn't shy from the face of paperwork, I went full steam ahead even during lunch when Asia was getting filled in on everything and everyone. Even my position in the peerage as a high-class demon. Having my presence revealed to the underworld unnerved me slightly. I wasn't scared, but I had a feeling that it won't be as great for me as the nobles make it out to be or the abusive use of their political power. It will be more pain than pleasure for me, I suspect. The smoothness came to an abrupt end right at its end. When the final school bell rung to signal the end of the day, the boys in the class came to my chair as I was packing up. "Boy Haidu, meet us on the field." Their representative spoke up but turned straight afterwards, leaving the room followed by the other boys. Casting a quick glance outside of the window and could only groan in annoyance as I saw a number of boys stood at the school field. Giving my body a light stretch as I stood up, I swung my bag over my shoulder and started to walk out of the room. Stopping at the door, I turned to Asia who was hurrying to pack up. "Asia, wait for me in the student council room. Tell Kaichu that I'll deal with the outburst that arises seeing as it's my problem anyway." Asia looked at me confused, but I didn't bother to answer her as I walked straight out of the room, the eyes of the girls firmly on me, as I made my way through the school building without a care and without any hints of nervousness at what was ahead of me. Unbeknownst to them, I was immortal and could easily deal with them all. Being a devil or demon didn't really fit into play because under a big number like this, they couldn't win without showing too much power. As an immortal I can keep my power level down, but use my immortality as simple ruggedness and ability to take hits. Stepping out of the school doors, I turned towards the school field and made my way there. I could feel the population of the school following suit, even the devils here save for a fair few. Once I got off from the steps leading down to the field, I was met by Nim-chan who was oddly bubbly, despite the weird atmosphere that had fell upon the school. She was also quick to take my bag off of me without me going to gesture and hugged it close to her chest. "Go get him, Issei-senpai." If she wasn't hugging my bag so close to her chest, she probably would have thrown up her fist in a playful gesture. I just beeped my head to the side in response and raised an eyebrow before turning to look at the boys on the field. As I walked towards them I could tell it was just the second-year boys here. The very few in the third years wouldn't bother wasting their potential prospects, and the first years actually liked me, especially due to helping tutor a number of them, so I had become a senpai that they could look up to within the school. As I found myself being circled by the third-year-so boys in my year, I sighed in annoyance and disappointment. This really was just a waste of everyone's time. "So what do you idiots want?" My question was met by an action rather than an answer. The same guy who told me to come here tried to attack me from behind. Turning my body to the side, his body went past mine. My trailing left hand caught his wrist, and I jerked his body further forward, throwing his balance off completely, spinning round to meet his body. After letting go off his hand, I took a hold of his head in my left hand and drove the side of his face straight into the ground without care or hesitation, and the resulting scream of pain that came from him nerved the crowd greatly. More so the onlookers than the idiots that were pissed off at me. "Really? I become friendly with a girl who was completely out of your reach, and I earn your undying hatred more so than usual." I didn't really say it to the boys, but just muttered it under my breath, though it was still loud enough for those around us to hear. It seemed to have picked the last straw from them, as their anger was let loose, and they started to come at me. Two came at me to begin with, one from the front and one from behind. I took a simple step towards the first one before stepping to the side again, making his punch sail past me and towards the one coming from behind, who had just brought his own fist forward. They were both able to bring down their fists, but that didn't matter as I took a hold of the one who had lost balance after faltering from missing his punch on me first. Taking a hold of the back of his head, I kept up his momentum and slammed his forehead into the nose of the other guy. The sound of his nose cracking echoed out as blood gushed from it. Feeling Yubel pull onto the left side of my mind, I jumped backwards on instinct to dodge the incoming fist of another assaulter. I ducked as I felt another one coming from behind me, dropping down onto my hands. I slipped my legs in between his legs and pushed up into a handstand, flipping his body forwards and roughly down onto his back. Seeing another with his fist raised and a smirk plastered on his face, I let my weight take hold and my arms bent while I opened up my legs just in time for his fist to narrowly miss my genitals. Quickly closing up my legs again, I crossed them over and took a firm hold onto his arm as I twisted my body round, taking a full hold of his body's gravity and brought my legs down, letting my body drop down as well, slamming his body into the floor, twisting his wrist in the process. Pushing myself up off of the floor, I skipped back 2 spaces away from the pile of 5 boys that failed to even touch me and took in the aura of the remaining 25 boys around me. The space around me was pretty big, meaning the 25 that circled me left quite a few gaps that I could exploit if I even wanted to leave, though I had no need to. I was just using their own momentum against them, capitalizing on their mistakes. Though honestly, if I was like them, I never would have guessed that I knew how to fight. Giving my sweater a quick dust off, I could see more people leaving the school building. More importantly, it was Sona and Tsubaki with the teachers who were now coming out. Looking a bit closer, I could see Asia just in front of them, looking a little out of sorts. Turning my head to the side, I looked towards 2 of the guys here with an obvious condescending look, which instantly riled them up, enough so that they stupidly charged at me, though luckily they had some decent friends who also decided to charge too. Another one from behind me and 2 to my left, meaning 5 to take on at once. Spinning my head round, I let Yubel take over sight for the split second to take in the spirits of the 5 guys. The one from the back was slower than the others, indicating that the last hit would be from behind. The 2 to my left would come at me at first, while the 2 directly in front would come somewhere in between. Feeling something strange, I took notice that the other boys had finally seen the teachers coming and they had started to move, not dispersing to try to get away, but to come at me, hoping at least someone could get a hit in before they get dealt with. Turning on the spot, I decided to go towards the closest of the 25 who was lone, running straight at him, giving the vision of a bull just charging. As he reared back his fist, I changed from left foot to right foot as my dependent and pushed off from the ground with my right foot going towards him, but also upwards at the same time. My opponent let his fist fly as my body continued to rise up into the air. I started to flip my body over as I reached down with my left arm, taking his right wrist into my grasp. With my body passing, I let my grip loosen slightly as my hand ran up his arm, my body dropping down right behind his. Pressing my back right into his, I pushed my hold back up his arm towards his wrist while pulling his arm over me, arching my body forward as I bent the knee on my dependent right leg while kicking back with my left to take away his balance. Using my superior demon strength, I threw him upwards and over my body, still holding onto his wrist, and slammed him down into the ground in front of me. Dropping my hold on his wrist, I spun around at my crouched stance and grabbed a hold of the 2 fists that came at me. Dropping down again, but onto my butt this time, I pulled forwards on the fists and planted my feet into their stomachs and allowed their force to combine with mine, causing me to roll backwards on my butt. I slammed my hands back down against the floor, using them as balance to completely roll my body back, and just as my feet passed completely over my head, I shot them up like a piston, kicking the 2 bodies off of me, reducing me to just 22 opponents now. Everyone. Stop now. Turning my head to the side as I pushed off from the floor and onto my feet again, they both stopped nearly a meter away from me, both of them wearing a disappointed expression. Issei-kun, I didn't think you'd lower yourself to something like this. Aichu, there is only so much I will take before actually getting annoyed. Asia is more to me than they know and judge from the off simply because they think perversely. So I decided to fulfill their request, although I doubt that they thought I would beat them without any effort. You are a part of the student council now, Issei-kun. I can't have you lowering people's opinions of us. This will be your only warning. Come to me next time, or there will be a punishment awaiting you. But the slight HMPH, I guess anyway. She turned around and walked off. Tsubaki following after her. Once she shook her head at me while wearing a wry smile, something I couldn't understand the meaning for at all, if there even was one for it. Once they left, Nim-chan came over to me with my bag in hand and Asia nervously by her side. Issei-san, are you okay? Before I could even answer, Nim-chan interrupted for me. Asia-senpai, were you not even watching? Issei-senpai kicked their asses. You were Aruko-san, ladies shouldn't use language like that. To Asia's response, Nim-chan only smiled mischievously before turning round to me while holding that same grin. As I looked at her expectantly, I just threw my bag over my shoulders. Issei-senpai, I'm coming shopping with you. Sure, it would be better if you do. I felt like I had just been saved, a girl to help Asia out, because I would have had no idea what to help her with. Even if she asked for me opinion, I don't think I could really give a decent one. As I turned round to start to leave the school premises, I couldn't help but think I heard Nim-chan say something to Asia. You won't take him without a fight. To say that all I received was a warning from the fight I was involved in with my fellow second years would be wrong, even though Sona said all I'd get would be a warning this time. I was given a lot more paperwork to do the following few days. I know this for a fact because I've seen Yuri-kun deal with some of the details that these papers went on about. General affair things. So much paperwork, it was ridiculous. Though, none of this compared to what Asia was dealing with. Asia's first week living this new life was a hectic one. Sona had given her quite a steep cliff to climb in order to get accustomed, and to do it all in 1 week was kinda hard for a normal person, let alone Asia, who isn't used to life as a normal person. On top of that, she was now dealing with student council work, though that was pretty small in comparison, work as a devil distributing leaflets, and then the school populace. The boys trying to get with her and the girls who are trying to get things out of her. The girls were pretty evenly divided on learning about Asia and finding out what she knew about me. Luckily for the girls, Asia was too nice and innocent to understand the full meaning behind all of their questions. The way Asia was also sprung the first years into action. It was a little strange, but I've noticed that the 3 separate years are all pretty tightly strung, they never spoke to each other outside of school's clubs. Each year seemed to keep to themselves. Well, there was the few first years who'd come to my class every now and again to get me to tutor them at lunchtime, but other than that everyone kept to their ages. But with Asia's introductions it changed that, and I think that's because someone had gotten close to one of the untouchables. The untouchables wasn't really a thing that was set in stone like the princes or great one-isamas were, but just a collective term that the students just knew of. The untouchables were the occult research club and the student council, but more importantly was the prince's 2 great one-isamas, Mascot and Kaichu and Fuku Kaichu. No one really got to those 7, even with me doing the tutoring it never went outside of that, but a girl, a friendly and innocent one at that, came into the mix and, to them, had info on me. Of course Asia misunderstood most of this, but I refrained from explaining it all to her, she seemed to be having fun regardless. Guo Academy was a school like no other, and that's why it ran so well. After school on the second week of Asia's life as a devil, I found myself being dragged through the school building by Sona and Tsubaki, while the rest of the peerage followed after us. My stoic facade showing absolutely none of the hatred I currently had for the Kaichu and Fuku Kaichu of this school. My reason for currently disliking them was simple, I had no real obligation to go, but I was being forced to go with them all to the occult research club and see the other devils, because while our meetings have been very brief, Nim-chan and Asia still haven't been introduced to them, and likewise for Ria's 3 pawns. This was something I didn't want to deal with because I simply just didn't want to. Their clubroom is just weird. So as I was being dragged around the school building, something which the students who were still at school took to fine, I decided to read my book after taking the time to take my glasses out from my pocket. I actually got a lot of reading down to, remarkably enough for the time it takes to get to the old school building anyway, because while I was being dragged we were not in a hurry, so the drag itself was pretty much not needed. And persona fashion, we didn't knock and wait when they finally pulled me up the stairs to the room that Ria's and her peerage was in. Both Sona and Tsubaki knocked on the 2 doors to the room and then kindly used my head to push down the brass handles and open the 2 doors to the clubroom, and I did not falter during it, I just continued to read my book like nothing happened. Sona, what brings you here? Since we both have 3 members who are new, I thought that we would come by to introduce ourselves. So Yubel-chan didn't want to come with? Not really being able to see the expression of those in the room, I could tell that there was some form of happiness to it from the state I was in. Maybe it was a sort of wry understanding. Still though, I wonder how long she and Sona is going to call me by Yubel. Perhaps it's some pure blood stuff that'll never stop. Though I'd prefer she didn't use such a friendly honorific towards me. This room has a terrible ambience. It's like you are actually trying to make people believe that this is just for show, yet no students other than devils and, when forced, one demon come here. Either that or it's my dislike for the Victorian era. If the underworld is all gothic like this, then I'm going to have to become a hikikomori or maybe just a plain old hermit. Yubel-san, please just introduce yourself. At that, Sona and Tsubaki let go of me so I could stand up properly. Pushing my glasses up slightly, I closed my book and leisurely moved my hand to the side, causing the book to disappear like it was a cheap magic trick. I then mustered up some fake motivation as I performed a circular motion with my left arm before bending it forward and directly in front of my waist and bent forward slightly into a bow like a butler would. I held it for several seconds before bringing my head back up to introduce myself, taking note of the slightly surprised faces that I was showing any kind of care. Seeing as we are all denizens of hell, I will go with my proper name. It's not a pleasure to meet you all. I am Yubel, a high-class demon and the demonic spirit priest. Throwing my hands out to the side, I summoned a Nusa into each hand and shook them lightly, turning my formal introduction into a small kind of amusement for myself. Making them disappear, I turned round to Sona with a sigh. Is that enough? Yes, though I'd appreciate it if you left out the whisper altogether. Giving a slight shrug in response, the remaining 5 newbies, or in the eyes of the underworld, low-class devils, then introduced themselves properly between themselves. Asia and the 2 kendo girls already knowing each other properly as they all sit near each other in class. Yubel-chan, could I ask you something? Turning from watching Asia interact with the others, I see her is perilously close to me with a keno, her queen just behind her. If you use a better honorific, I will listen to your request. Of course, Yubel-kun. I was thinking of taking my cute new servants to the familiar forest and I was wondering if you'd come along to help. Cute? What kind of sight problems does she have to consider Saji as cute? No, wait, that's wrong to people with eye problems. They'd be able to tell despite it all. I should probably mean brain problem. Although, she is being pretty presumptuous with this request. It's almost like I haven't made my slight dislike for her fully known yet. Riaz. There is no way I would let you do something so intimate with Yubel-san. Intimate how? Yubel, am I missing something? It's a very intimate gesture. Only family members can jump together, so you'd have to undergo a process to temporarily join. Additionally, you should know that the forest only opens once every full moon and only one devil group can enter. Sona has just saved that girl from being strangled. Something special for us is that we can go there whenever we want. As the demonic spirit priestess, I have that right. I was the one who founded the special dimension for the familiars all those years ago. My see. That sure is handy. If I remember correctly, the full moon should be tomorrow night. Well, Gremory-senpai, I didn't know you thought of me that way. We barely even know each other. Unlike you, it'd be my first time. I used my best bashful tone in response. Well, it wasn't that good. It was enough to set Riaz off because as a noble, she understands the implications of what she had brought forward. Either way, it's a no. I don't particularly want to deal with any backlash from said event. I don't want the return of Yubel to be a part of some scandal that is about the Gremory heiress's whims on getting out of an arranged marriage. There is also the fact that I don't want to deal with your fiancé. I can tell already without even hearing about him that I wouldn't get any semblance of an intellectual conversation out of him, so it's best for me to just reject, even though I would have done it regardless. No, really, well, my first thought is just not wanting to do something good by her. I also really don't want to irritate the Phoenix clan in any way. I mean, they are the wealthiest devil clan and are also surrounded by more spirits than other devils because of being the Phoenix clan. I don't want to bring their ire at all, really. I want to be on their good side, no matter how much I may or may not dislike them or even just a single member. Politics mean much more to me than a great relationship with Riaz. Right now, I'm more inclined to coming to terms with Riaz's father than herself. I currently go to school with Riaz and in the service of her rival and best friend, familiarity and trust will come between us regardless, and that's all I want towards her. Political security and friendship. Gremory-senpai, I'm sure Lord Gremory or your brother has left documents and books about the original Yubel. With how the days ahead are planned, I don't really see why you are asking me other than to just simply acquire stronger familiar for your servants. Regardless of your reasons and regardless of when, I'm afraid I must decline to help you out with a gesture that is rather intimate in nature. You must look at this from my side as well. I can't afford my first dealings, or should I say proper one at that, being something like this with the heiress to a pillar clan. Especially when she is engaged and this is a deal that isn't in consent with the fiancé. Ah yes, I'm sorry, Yubel-kun. You seem to be prepared already for your future. Despite her inquisition on my side of things, she looked a little downtrodden at such a well-thought reason to decline her. It is always best to be prepared. I also believe I wouldn't hear the end of it from Kaichu if I wasn't. Even with that as it is, I have more riding on my shoulders than an heir and heiress. The position I'm coming into is an awful like what the current Satans had for themselves. My duties won't be restricted to a certain area like the clans, mine will be the whole underworld, unlike the Satans who have the whole of the devil territory. I have to get it all sorted and quickly, not that I'm against it at all. I'm up for the challenge. I answered in reply with a slight wry smile. My duties would be to a grand scale, at least this gains me a slight protection against the fallen angels because of it. Lording over the spirits in the underworld as a whole is what Yubel had to do, a large task, but I know have the ability to control all spirits. There are chances I could be asked to help other places, maybe even like heaven to keep this steady thin line of peace alive. Riaz took to my answer well, and it was good that she did. I was trying to push the conversation away to something better in regards to her position in Minsid. What happened next though not only disrupted our conversation, but disrupted the whole room's conversation. Poof. A small but oddly loud explosion resounded through the room. The reason for that was Kurobo, somehow and for some reason it returns back to wherever I am amidst an explosion of smoke. I've asked Yubel, but what I got in reply was spirits have fun too. It left me a little perplexed to say the least. It was oddly fitting that he returned from his rounds of distributing my leaflets as he was my acting familiar until I go there myself to get my own. Kurobo, as always, glumps straight onto the back of my head and annoyingly blends in making it look like I have some sort of giant afro with big beady eyes. Kurobo has scared many a kid just randomly appearing in town on the way home after dealing with papers in the council room. Though when you take him off my head, he is seen as a cute cuddly toy. Kids love him, Asia loves him, and every other girl blushes at the sight of the brown fur ball. It's both weird and fascinating how Kurobo can do that. Kuri. So you are back, huh? Any changes? Kuri. I see. Same old stuff. While I can't understand him like I would another person, I do actually understand what he is saying. Repeating part of what any spirit says in reply is habit for me. It allows me to properly ascertain what they said, especially if there are others around me and want to know what the spirit said. If I could compare it to anything, it's like those animal whispers except real. Kuri. The nurse lady. Do you mean Kobayashi Hakis? Kuri. So she is sending the leaflets to father, huh? Is that all the note said? Instead of answering me, Kurobo just dangled the note that was left behind by Kobayashi Hakis. Plucking it from his grasp I looked at it myself. Looking at it I saw something a little peculiar in the footer for the note. It was a PS note. Apparently she had something special to tell me next time she calls me for a contract. Yubel-san, by Kobayashi Hakis, do you mean the school nurse? Looking up from the note, I placed my eyes on Riaz, and I could see the slight red tint in her cheeks as her eyes slowly drifted up from me and towards Kurobo. Waving my hand above my head, Kurobo gives it a little rub before disappearing away back into his card. Yeah. After work she is called by her father to help out for a few hours at his hospital, so she calls on me to make food or bathe her sometimes when she is too tired. She is kinda annoying, her hands like to wander a lot. Anyway, she has seen my student info and has seen that I have first aid training, so she has asked me to help out whenever or to take over for her if she has to do a course or something. I agreed without thinking, but in hindsight, it might be too troubling. We got into talking about medicine and the like, and we got into talk about my ability to control spirits to where she asked about whether they can heal people in some way. Because of my answer, which was yes, she was going to inquire with her father to see if we could do something there. From the looks of this note, it seems that the talks are going well between them. I wonder if this'll mean she gets more breaks as thanks from her father. Bringing my free hand to stroke my chin, I looked again at the note in my hand. I decided to keep away from looking round at the potential responses to doing such a thing with a teacher, even if it was just for a contract. Most of the problem is that I just accept it and do it without a problem on my side of things. Her contracts are especially worse if she calls for me after having a few drinks or I'm held back slightly, so I can't stop her from having a drink or two. Those nights I always return soaked. She really does just let go after getting alcohol in her. Though, she is my first contract, so I guess it's that's making me more accepting towards what she wants for her contract. Stashing the note back into my pocket, I come out of my slight reverie to see Sona and Riaz arguing over familiars. Apparently Sona was going to talk to us about that after we returned to the council room, but I have a strange feeling that she only just thought about it. To rub it in Riaz's face perhaps. No, I can't see Sona doing something that could be considered childish like that. Monopoly perhaps. Get the stronger familiars using my help. Sona, let's settle this like high schoolers. Like high schoolers. Most marks on a test. Least marks on a test. Either seem valid to me. Yes, I agree, Riaz, but it would be best to leave this to our servants. It's an equal 3-on-3 after all. After school the next day. Standing in the center of the gym, I felt a little annoyed. No, actually I felt really pissed off. I had told Sona afterwards that we didn't need to go on a full moon because of Yubel, but Sona just cast that aside and said we would do it the normal way so Riaz couldn't go this time. It would seem that Sona was a little childish, but that's not what really annoyed me. The thing that annoyed me was that we had an audience and thus we couldn't freely use magic, not that it hinders me this much, I just wanted to thrash them and quickly at that. This means I didn't have that liberty. The second problem was that it was a sport, we were deciding this through a game and a contact one at that, meaning Asia was out of it straight away. The game was basketball with custom rules. No matter what, every goal was worth 3 points. The foul system was also changed slightly, normally you could only slap the ball away. Here you can try and take it from your opponent's grasp, even if they have both hands on it. Slight nudges are allowed, but trips and pushes were against the rules. The next rule was a new one, you could throw it to yourself. This meaning you could throw the ball around the field and then run after it. This meant those that could run faster or jump higher would have an advantage. Pretty much street rules, we could use our feet, but that was only during an intervention of an opponent's pass. Coincidentally, that meant we could score with a kick, although it was out of reach for everyone bar me, but I would have to get Yubel's help on that part. Most points win at the end of 5 minutes. 5 minutes straight with no breaks. As we stood on our team's side, I took in everyone's clothes for the game, and Nim-chan had to be the one who was different. Though that was to say that rather than sneakers like us she had actual high tops, I didn't know that we could wear high tops instead of sneakers for physical education here. While Sona stood in between our two groups and recited the rules for the onlookers and us for the final time, I turned to my only teammate here. Nim-chan, as per your height do not try to dunk the ball. Unfortunately a human of your size can't do that. Treat it as street rules, bob and weave while ducking if you have to. Control the center and I'll control the goals. We are better off being a man down than having Asia with us, as bad as it sounds we are lucky. Let's win this one. You betcha Issei senpai. She threw her fist up playful in recognition. Boys, please step forward. Both Saji and myself walked toward Sona, gave a slight nod to each other before taking a step over the line onto our opponent's half and then turning around. Taking the ball into her left head, Sona raised her whistle to her mouth with her free right hand and readied it. As soon as she threw the ball into the air, she blew on the whistle to announce the start of the game. Waiting nearly a second, I jumped after Saji had thrown my hands into the air as Saji sent my hand down to smack the ball. Placing my hand solely in front, I caught the slapped ball and spun round throwing the ball straight back up into the air and straight towards their goal. Dropping down again, I see Nim-chan being obstructed by the pink half of the kendo duo and the brown half waiting to intercept me. Clapping my hands, I made my eyes flash as they forced an illusion onto my opponent from the kendo duo. I was playing a late recording of what was happening, although it was only by a split second to make the movements believable. Rushing past her, I slowed my pace slightly as I reached the normal free throw spot and jumped into the air, catching the ball from its long time in the air and guiding it down into the basket. 3-0. Dropping down after getting the very early first score, the crowd lights up in noise supporting the goal. Bumping fists with Nim-chan, we ready ourselves for the rest of the game. 6-0 equals Issei. 9-0 equals Issei. 9-3 equals Caddis. 12-3 equals Nomura. 15-3 equals Issei. 15-6 equals Murayama. 15-9 equals Caddis. 18-9 equals Nomura. With half a minute left after scoring our 18th point, I dropped back to our side of the field, with Nim-chan letting the occult team have some room to breathe. Alright Nim-chan, just defend now. As soon as we get the ball go for a goal, don't run down the court. Defend and run down the clock. As Saji threw the ball back into court, the 30 seconds started to tick down. Standing within our dunk zone, I watched Saji and the kendo duo slowly stalk forwards. Saji positioned himself on the right side of our field as Caddis came through the middle and Murayama came through the left. Nim-chan has seemed to favor her right side. They'll be looking to push Murayama onto me while leaving the other two to Nim-chan, probably Saji as he went for the dunks earlier, and with Nim-chan blocking him instead, he could actually get one in. Nah, I won't allow that. 20 seconds left and they break into our half with Caddis leading the charge with the ball in hand. Nim-chan starts to backtrack while angling her body to face in between Caddis and Saji. Passing the ball through to Saji, Nim-chan goes straight to him to intercept, but the ball is thrown straight back to Caddis, who immediately throws it to Murayama as they close in on the dunk zone. 15 seconds left. I was right. The instant I go towards her, she'll throw it. Let's play her then. Pushing my body forwards, I take a heavy step forwards as I flush a small amount of spirits into the ground, sending a vibration through the ground. Sending Murayama's footing off, her throw towards Saji has sloppy and doesn't go as high as intended. Nim-chan was able to intercept as I turned round. 10 seconds left. Nim-chan throws a lofty shot towards the goal. Taking the time to gauge the shot's path, I saw Caddis and Saji both turn around to sprint back. Seeing the shot trajectory, it would hit the hoop, but after rolling round the rim, it would roll off unless either I could slap it in, or either Saji or Caddis could pluck it away and try to quickly get it back downfield. 8 seconds left. Feeling a shift to my left just as I push forward with my forward right foot, I drop my body low and stumble slightly dodging Murayama's outstretched hand, which was obviously out to grab me. Regaining my position, I push forward and sprint down the court myself after the ball. 5 seconds left. Passing the halfway line, I come to the decision that I'd be too late, regardless of even if I could get my hands on the ball that's still in motion. I allowed myself to skid forward as I tried to stop my momentum, swiped my hand up wildly, sending out a small stream of wind throughout the gym, putting a little more spin onto the ball. As I came to a stop, the ball hit the ring as the timer hit 0. The ball then hit the inside of the ring, but right at the top and ricocheted off and away completely. It would seem like I didn't put enough wind into it. I kinda failed myself there. Well, to the average human, magic would have put the ball in the net, so that could be passed as a light breeze running in from outside. Just before I could scratch my head in annoyance, I felt my center of gravity shift as a weight, only quietly known as a heavy one, forced itself onto my back, wrapping its legs around my waist and its arms around my neck, placing its head on top of mine. The only expression that I could muster was a deadpan, nothing else would suit me here. No wait, I could also add a small blush to that. Sweating. Sticky shirt. Small breasts. Yeah, I can definitely feel them on my back. We won. It's not really that impressive against them, but I can see how you would be happy about this. People are way too energetic for me. Shame we didn't crush them. Soft and warm. We got double their points though, Issei-senpai. I'm more satisfied through you jumping on my back than winning that game. As soon as I said that, I felt Nim-chan's arms and legs tightened around me in some sort of loving manner. Actively triggering flags now, Ibu. Ah well, after saying it I realized how it could be taken other than what I intended. My bad. What you gonna do? You had Yubel release her seals on me, so my presence is being released even with you not summoning me yet. Girls are gonna come regardless, and with you all stoic and wetnut, they are all gonna feel equal in the harem. Harem? I'm gonna have one, aren't I? And to think I became a loner so stuff like that wouldn't happen. I have too many problems in life, this is just annoying but also pleasant. Pervert. Wait, what? I. You love me too. Ibu. Dreg. We are boned. But that said, I could feel the strange hostility that was flowing through the air like a strange mist. Greg, quick. How do we resolve this? Are you sure you want my answer? Am I? I'll take what I can get knowing that Yubel won't help me out. Yeah, sure. Kill them all. Scratch that, he is a dragon after all. And to think I could pride myself on my intelligence. Hunk you too, Ibu, I can hear your thoughts. My point still stands. Bringing it back though, why in the hell did she have to shout it out anyway? Why couldn't she done the typical girl thing and scream it out in her mind, or waited until she got home later and screamed her delight into her pillow while rolling around? Not gonna comment on that thought. Too late, Dreg. Nim-chan, why? Not like these humans could hurt me at all. Might as well get an answer. You have yet to protest like you normally do. Ah, that's right. I made a blunder, damn Saji. Yeah, let's put the blame on Vritra. I'm cool with that. I didn't, did I? Well, I suppose we should run, or I should, seem as you'll be hitching a ride regardless. Ooh-oh. Let's go, Issei-kun. I fear you may have got yourself into a relationship with a young girl. Lolican. Turning on the spot, I hightailed it out of the gym, not bothering to pay any attention to what was behind us, and make our way to the student council room. Shut a drag, you lowly dragon emperor. Red emperor of twin tails. Ugh, you win for now, Ibu. This emperor will strike back. The student council room held a very strange atmosphere as the clocks ticked down till night. It would have been that way regardless for some time, but because Nim-chan decided to not move off of me when we returned, the strange atmosphere stayed. I didn't bother saying anything to her because I knew she wouldn't have listened regardless. If she wasn't going to do it straight away, then me telling her asking to her wouldn't result in a different response. I'd just be wasting air. If it would have worked, then I'd have said something straight away. So I spent the time till nightfall doing paperwork while Nim-chan continued to cling to me and Asia pinching my cheek for some reason. Though there were times I forgot she was still doing it until I made a sudden movement of my head and causing a new 1-second wave of pain to flush through my cheek. Luckily Nim-chan got off of me once we started the teleportation circle to the familiar forest. I certainly felt free again at that point, but that sense of freedom became mute once the connection of our circle to the forest was made. The place we appeared into was a dark forest with soft silver light glimpsing through the canopies above us. It was strange, it was dark, but my sight was perfect. I could easily tell how thick each shadow was that loomed over the area, but I could also see what was being covered by the shadows like they weren't even there. It was odd. Dead days. Oh dear. My name is Ituji of Madara Town. I'm a devil in training, aiming to become the familiar master. Is his life meant to be a parody like one? I sorta feel sorry for him for some reason. Satuji, these three are the ones I spoke of. Turning round to Sona's voice, I saw that she and the rest of the peerage had taken a step away from me, Asia and Nim-chan, both of which who were using me as a shield of sorts. A blonde beauty, twin-tail beauty and Yubel Dono. Okay, leave it to me. I'll help you guys get the perfect familiar. Why do I feel like he is underplaying me? But he called me Dono, I could get used to that honorific. I wonder what the other nobles will use, I'm sure I could get Sama out of them by threatening to use the demonic sacred beasts. That actually sounds a little fun. Yubel Dono, do you want my help or will you look for it yourself? Neither. I'm just gonna get whatever if I come across one I want, if those two have gotten one before I find mine then I won't have one. I see. Let's hope one takes an interest in you then. Satuji then turned around swiftly with a hand on his chin and started to stroll lightly towards the forest and we quietly started to follow after him. The moment we stepped into the trees, he stopped abruptly shouting "Ah!" and then veered us all off in a single direction, murmuring the words "cute monsters" over and over. I wonder if only the extremes are in charge of certain aspects in the devil world. I surely hope I don't get that way too. We walked past a multitude of creatures on our way through the forest, both to what I would take as normal and because of my entrance. Some creatures, more so the younger ones, would just go about normally. You'd see slight glimpses of them or them flying past you like you weren't even there. You'd see the full-grown monsters standing in the brush, an array of spooky eyes following my each and every movement. The older, more sage-like monsters stood in reverence and simply watched as we walked by. My presence caused quite the big distraction at a small pond where Undine were said to frequent. According to Satuji, you would see one and rarely see two fighting, but here the whole pond was filled with Undine. Popping up one after another they started fighting, an all-out brawl. That said, the most surprising part was that no matter what Satuji said they were not feminine at all. I didn't see any hint of their supposed innocence, I just felt slightly creeped out. Then from there we went to somewhere that was still innocent but much more applicable to Asia herself. Sprite Dragon. Satuji had shouted it out once we left the viewing area for the Undine, and somehow, for some reason we immediately came upon the Sprite Dragon. A fascinating little beauty. A dark white hide covering his belly and most of his face, while the blue diamond-like scales covered the rest of its little body. At first glance I could tell it was just a kid, but it was also pretty damn powerful for its young age. Upon looking straight at us I could see its mind working through its eyes, processing us of our worth. He showed no interest in anyone other than me or Asia. He flew straight at us, looked at me perplexed. I could hear Satuji spouting off how amazing it was that a sprite dragon was so close to a male of another species and not attacking him, but there was absolutely no hostility in the dragon. I also felt like he didn't know who I really was. The little dragon's interest was solely on my eyes, a slight look of longing in them, but for what purpose I couldn't tell. My ability to read minds isn't as great as Yubel's just yet. The little cutie then flew straight towards Asia, circled her slightly, then dropped down onto her shoulder clinging on. It was strange, but it reminded me of a dog circling before it could lie down. It had that same feel to it. Everyone then turned to Asia with happy faces, for she had seemed to have found her familiar. It was cool to see her affinity in the act. Satuji on the other hand was stepping back and forth, maybe he was scared of getting attacked. Sparkles and stars seemed to appear from the future familiar master's eyes as he stared at the sprite dragon. The ability to get more info on it and get closer was there, but he was gauging his chances and success. The sprite dragon could and would attack if it felt that either himself or now Asia was in potential danger. That is the way of dragon, to protect. Hi. Turning round to the scream, I could see that all girls other than Asia had been taken and elevated into the air. Upon closer inspection I could see a green sort of goo wrapped around their bodies holding them up into the air, slowly dissolving their clothes away. I found myself gaping in confusion. This low-level slime had a deadly ability, I could take advantage of it. Pervert. Wait, no. Not again. Ibu, are you doing this on purpose now? Even if I was it wouldn't be better. That's true, but can you stop anyway? I'm getting tired of Yubel sulking in a corner. Huh? Sulking. Getting tired of it after two things. Already? Where is your patience, Drag? The White One and I, we wouldn't have started our fight during the Great War if we had any patience. That's a frighteningly good reply from you, Drag. You've said too much good today. Yubel, help us already. Looking towards Sona who was held at the top of the hierarchy that the slime had somehow accurately made. First, I took into account that her underwear matched her hair with a small bow on each that perfectly matched her eyes. Then I realized that she called me Yubel without the san, and finally I realized that they couldn't use their own magic to free themselves. Such a dilemma. This slime is a scary existence to women everywhere. Is it the wilderness's pervert? Turning my attention towards the slime, I looked into what I assumed were its eyes. It was looking at me hopefully, it really wanted to get my fellow peerage naked for some reason. No, I know the reason full well. That's not a good idea, slime. The main body of the slime shrunk but in turn, just got angrier and grew larger, sending more goo tentacles to wrap around the girls, fastening the process. Ah, so it's a petty child slime. I see. Don't try to understand it, Issei-kun. I'm not Nim-chan, it was just a simple conclusion. I didn't try for it. I guess I'm gonna have to kill it so they can get free. Summon. Red eyes black chick. A scaled red egg bursts into existence in front of us. As soon as it does, the egg started to crack and out came a small black dragon with large red eyes. Rivaling the sprite dragon in size, it was definitely skinnier though. Roar. Filling my heart with slight joy, the little black dragon roared lightly into the air, cheerfully flapping its wings to stay in the sky. A brief second later and it sensed the enraged slime. To my joy, the little black dragon didn't falter at all. He just roared again in happiness as he started to charge up his miniature inferno fire blast, taking considerably longer than me or its adult counterpart. It launched a ball of flaming fury right into the main body of the slime after nearly 10 seconds of charging. The slime was completely eradicated when the ball of fire hit the slime, and the little black dragon chirped in happiness while circling around me in the sky, dropping down onto my head, using my hair as a nest to curl up in. Ha 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 ha. Panting. Looking down, I see the source of the panting. It was a dog or a wolf. Definitely seemed similar to a canine of that sort. The matte black fur though did make it look pretty damn cool. Its dark blue eyes looked up to me coolly as it held its tongue out, continuing to pant. Asatuji, why is this dog staring at me? The female haunt. They primarily live in caves and live off very little food and water. They only venture far from the cave when a male goes to town to plunder or when a female looks for companionship. Wait, companionship? Bending down slightly, I put my hand out for the haunt and it simply put my hand in its mouth and started to lick my hand. Weird way to go about it, but it damn well hurt, the rapid licking taking out the single-second wave of pain through multiple hits. I should have mentioned it earlier. Haunts have poisonous saliva and claws. I would have appreciated that earlier. But still a dog-like creature, I wanted. Buy a dog bed, water bowl, food bowl. Some acid-resistant toys. I'll be set then after applying acid-resistant magic onto everything. Now it all sounds like a hassle I don't want to go through. Life sure is hard. The damn haunt then bit down into my hand as I was about to pull it away, locking my hand into place. Of course I could just rip my hand out and deal with that second of pain, but really, it's kinda gruesome, especially with part of my hand missing in that second. So it does want companionship. Obviously it knows the species gap. I'll also make sure I express my disinterest in that kinda thing later, so I guess this thing will be my familiar. Fine, I'll make you my familiar. The haunt narrowed its eyes slightly before releasing my hand back to me. Then sitting up straight, it looked right at me expectantly. I sighed lightly in defeat. Yubel, can I have an effect card? Raising my left hand up into the air, a clouded burnt orange card appeared into it. The blue circle for Citri appearing under the haunt as my black circle appeared above it, lighting up with deep purple crackles of thunder. Under my orders as Yubel, the demonic spirit priest, I bind you to myself as my familiar and your spirit to my mind. Respond to the contract to become a protector of spirits. A thick white aura takes to the haunt as the deep purple thunder circulates itself through the dog-like creature's body. The Citri circle making itself disappear as the familiar part of the new bond finalizes. Feeling a weight lift from my head, I notice black chick dismissing itself as the black magic circle starts to spin erratically, sending the white aura that collected round the haunt up and straight into the card that was still in my left hand. The power rushing through it as they link themselves together. Bringing the card down to speak the final command, I focused my eyes solely on the picture of a howling matte black haunt with its sharp dark blue eyes. Hori. The final command was the future name for the spirit of the creature that was being sealed into the card. At the end of our visit to the familiar forest, it was hard to say it was a good visit here. Most important was the Undines fighting, that was a huge turn-off. Actually that was enough to turn me off the visit completely. Apparently the slime also made it a bad instance too. The thing that still lingered in my mind was how Hori got to sit right in front of me without anyone noticing. Sure, she had black fur, but her presence was always there and it wasn't a pitiful one either. It must have an innate ability to be disguised, maybe so it could appear as just a black dog for safety reasons, or maybe even predator reasons. Sprite dragon, haunt and a chameleon. Issei, Hori and Keke. Asia using part of my name to name her sprite dragon was enough to anger Nim-chan into doing the same. She then also for some reason got annoyed that I didn't use her name for Hori, despite the fact I named her first. Troublesome really. Why Nim-chan chose a chameleon I'll never know, I get a feeling that I don't want to either. End of the part 2. So how was this story? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this story with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.